So good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. First panel of this amazing conference. We thank you, Cassidy and Jolie, having us back. We were here last year, actually, and it's exciting to see what has all changed, actually, when we think about the world, what has happened with generative AI. Ever since last year, you can obviously see a lot has changed. The technology has changed, but not maybe the way that we're all dealing with it. We're still trying to figure that out. And so what we are going to talk about are the positive things today. We're going to talk about, the panel is making the artificial practical, real-world path of things of generative AI today, especially in the work that we do, the three of us here, from a marketing and communications and technology perspective. Let me introduce myself. My name is Cristina Lawrence. I lead our consumer and content experience practice at Razorfish. Razorfish is a marketing transformation agency. We've been about a long time. We're part of Publicis Group, which is a marketing, communications, and media global holding company. So just some background for you all to know. And I'm here with my esteemed panel, starting all the way over to the left. I have Ilaria Donfrancesco, from Nissan. I'm going to have each of you. I'd love for you to do a brief introduction on who you all are. So I'm not going to get into titles. Josh Campo for Razorfish. And I have, oh my God, Carolyn. Carolyn Yap, who is from Google. And Carol, let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caroline Yap, and I'm the Managing Director of our global AI business. I work out of the Google Cloud side, but I have the privilege of working across all of the different product areas at Google. So you might know of things like YouTube, email, search, small divisions that you might not have heard of, maps, and of course, DeepMind. And so we call those product areas. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you today.
Good morning. I'm Josh Campo, the CEO of Razorfish. I'm incredibly happy to be here today. Razorfish has been investing a lot of time, energy, and money understanding artificial intelligence, I would say even before November 2022, and then even further after November when we all learned how to have fun with ChatGPT, and obviously partnering a lot with Carolyn and Google to understand and deploy the technology on behalf of clients. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ilaria, and I currently work at Nissan as a global product manager. And I am responsible of leading generative AI initiative, improving our customer experience on our digital platform. And I'm thankful for being here. Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit, and I'm going to be timekeeper as well. So let's talk a little bit about hype and possibilities. And so, we know that when it comes to talking about Gen AI, especially within our business settings, there's a lot of discourse that is very hype-centric. And of course, there's a lot of unknowns and possibilities, especially around the applications of using this technology in a responsible way. And so let's just talk a little bit about hype and possibilities, and I'll start with Caroline. So many companies are asking if they should be using Gen AI, which aspects of their business need it, and what they're doing today with predictive AI that could benefit and be accelerated with Gen AI technologies. And can you talk a little bit about this dynamic and how Gen AI has made all this more accessible?
The thing with generative AI, AI is everything and nothing at the same time. I do a lot of public speaking, and I also meet with a lot of C-suites and boards. And so my team is a global team, and the reason why we're a global team is so we can understand how people from different cultures and backgrounds are looking at using these types of technologies. And when I say AI is everything and nothing at the same time, because it can do so much, if you're not prescriptive about the thing you're trying to solve for, it's not going to give you the results that you expect. And so we have a consumer business, which all of you know about, but people don't actually realize what AI can and cannot be. And I'm so glad that you brought up the thing around predictive AI and generative AI, because whenever I do speak, I always ask, and I'm actually going to do that today right here. I'm going to ask a question to everybody. How many of you are using Google AI today? Show of hands. Right? So that wasn't actually a trick question. If you've been using Gmail, YouTube, search, docs, you've been using Google AI. So now if I were to ask the question again, how many of you have been using Google AI? It's basically all of us, right? And the reason I do that is because of getting at the level setting with everyone. If you've been using Google Maps, which has been around since 2006, same with Google Earth Engine, you've been using predictive AI and you've been using Google AI since 2006. Even though Sundar made the declaration that we are an AI company from 2016, it's obviously a lot longer. Google Brain started in 2010, same time DeepMind did, and then we acquired DeepMind in 2014. So it's been over a decade of us actually doing work around AI. I'm not just talking about the research side of our business, I'm talking about our business as a whole and why we wanted to provide technologies like maps so that other businesses could use those. So now back to the whole thing of the generative AI, that's why I wanted to do that level setting. Not everything that you're doing in business requires generative AI. What I will say that generative AI, because of the power of large language models, has been able to do is help you see the correlation and connections between unstructured data that is the largest part of most businesses, what we call dark data, that you can now actually see. And how do you tie those relationships of unstructured data with your structured data to then decide what outcomes you want, what new experiences you want to design, whether they're internal for internal personas, employee assistance, healthcare benefits, not a problem in the UK, massive problem in the United States, trying to understand how it's our benefit choosing time. It's October. We all have to choose our annual benefits in the month of October. There's a strict cutoff and you need to understand costs. You need to understand maximum lifetime caps for certain conditions. Generative AI, when you use groundings and embeddings, like what Nigel said earlier, it's rubbish if you're just using the models themselves. But if you're grounding and embedding the data that you have declared to be good and declared to be trustworthy, that's why the generative AI interfaces can give you value. So finance, healthcare, internal searches, summarizing return policies as a consumer. And Nissan has some really good ones to talk about because they're also a client of ours. So there are the good things that generative AI can do in business. Well as you really thought about it, you understand how mature your predictive analytics and automation policies are. You understand where your data is. And even if you don't have all the data sets, how do you connect it so you can have the best experience?
And then, so Josh, building on that, how would you talk about those tangible benefits? Knowing, I know that you spoke I believe it was last month, on the complexities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of the complexity and the hype aspects around generative AI. So, and I think so much to the point where I feel like a lot of times we talk about AI as if it's this new thing. Gen AI, I think, is newly accessible to us as consumers or individuals. And I think that's part of where the complexity and the hype get mixed up, because here you have a technology that's tremendously powerful. It has been around frankly, for decades. Artificial intelligence has been around. Gen AI has taken that and almost instantly made a complex, powerful technology immediately understandable to consumers, right? It's go in and chat and, oh my God, the machine is living. It's talking to me. It's so smart. There's been almost no other technology in recent history that has been taken from such a tremendous complexity to immediately understandable by consumers. And so that drives this hype, because now you have executives and boards who are like, everybody knows about Gen AI. What's our strategy on Gen AI? And they haven't done the work to really think about it, right? To understand what do they want out of it? What is the value proposition? And taking the unstructured data and the structured data is one of the ways that a business can derive the most value from Gen AI. But for years now, we in the marketing advertising world have been saying, you need a strong data strategy. Sometimes we get a little bit like, yeah, that's boring. Well, guess what? Now it really matters. If you don't have a strong data strategy, then your ability to extract value from Gen AI and more broadly AI is extremely limited compared to your competitor set who may have been investing in it. And I think that complexity connected to the immediate understanding of the consumer mindset is part of what drives this type cycle, because everybody has to have an AI strategy right now. So how have they been developing it? And you lead to the past couple of years where people have been finding ways to weave Gen AI into every aspect of their product, their strategy, their jobs, basically everywhere you can see it without necessarily doing the tough work required to extract the value.
And I would say, building on, Carolyn, what you were saying, not every problem needs a solution with Gen AI in it, although a lot of clients do ask for it, right? Because it's such a important, it's part of the cultural zeitgeist, right? And then, Josh, as you were speaking around, customer and consumer experience, and Ilaria, this is a question for you. Thinking about generative AI is, to Josh's point, is the new interface, if you will. Never before, and I'm really going to simplify it, have consumers or people been able to talk directly to data. And that is a very simple way of putting it. And I know I'm about to be corrected, but understand. And so when you think about even like a .com of today, how in our estimation, it's going to completely change with these new sorts of technologies now that are going to allow us to actually help people get to the information they need immediately. They actually ask for it. And I want to know from your perspective over at Nissan, how is this technology impacting customer experience?
Yeah, well, as we said so far, I think that we need to focus more than on Gen AI per se, that technology, and how to use Gen AI to address certain customer needs in the customer experience, in the digital customer experience, which I info what I'm doing, what I suppose expert on. So what we've done at Nissan, instead of building a Gen AI strategy, we started from customer needs and customer pain points. So we identify customer needs and pain points in the customer journey using the help of our strategies and also working with our regions because we are a global function. And we managed to identify the certain customer needs and pain points that could have been addressed by using Gen AI. And we put that into practice and using pilots first, because we've been very careful, because with Gen AI, we also need to think about all the ethical implication and legal implication, especially when we direct the content and the information to our customer and so to our audience. So yeah, I would say that the approach that we used was basically to understand the customer needs and trying to identify pain points that couldn't be solved by Gen AI and starting our pilots to see how our customers would react to something like that.
And I'm just curious, has it been from where you are sitting, has product innovation accelerated since you started using generative AI, or have you not noticed a change? Or
well, I'd say that definitely with Gen AI, I observe a change of pace into digital products, innovation, and development. Now, as we were saying, I think we need to balance this needs for innovation with also what's really possible. So what we have right now, because I think there's also a lot of hype around the Gen AI, and we're sometimes companies always chasing the next big thing. But I think that it's really important to remain grounded and understand what's possible right now. So definitely there's been a change of pace in product development and evolution, but we need to be really careful and manage and own that change of pace and to be able to meet and exceed our customers' expectations.
well, let's talk a little bit then about the realities in the present. And Josh, I'll direct this to you. Can you share a bit about how Razorfish, their business outcome-focused approach, is helping to extract real value from Gen AI for our clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Ilaria's point here, getting after where is the experience opportunity for customers to enjoy a benefit, right? So we have had over the past couple of years, a lot of clients and brands come to us and say, we want to do something with Gen AI. It's kind of, well, that's great. We do too, but let's step back and say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the opportunity to create an experiential benefit with a customer and their journey, with a brand? And I think that takes us back to a fundamental understanding of Gen AI is not a strategy, it is a tool. So just like in our business, we've had many different tools come about. I think probably years and years ago, Photoshop came out. It could have been the end of creativity, right? And it turns out it wasn't. It was a great enabler. But that's because Photoshop was not a strategy, it was a tool. Gen AI is the same thing. It is a tool. And a tool, without thinking about how you're going to use it, doesn't add much value. And I think when we consider how we've been looking at the uses of Gen AI, we've had to consider ethics, because I think use of it in certain creative domains is not so clear from an ethical perspective. So we actually took it back and said, okay, what are some of the less fun ways that people would look at using Gen AI, but where they can truly add value? And I think bringing unstructured data and structured data is one of those areas. Our abilities to use Gen AI to extract insights from large quantities of data has been tremendous for us in terms of driving value and getting to outcomes, right? Our ability to really dimensionalize a specific segment of a consumer and have a conversation with that consumer or thousands of those consumers without necessarily needing to impanel, which is a huge asset for us and a huge asset for our clients to be able to understand that mindset based on data sets, both structured and not, right? So we have a lot of demographic data, those types of things, but then we have social posts. If you aggregate the social posts of thousands of people of a specific generation, of a specific geography, specific job function, you can extract a lot of detail around them and insights. Things that, as individuals, if we were to try and assemble a team of people to do that, it would have been cost prohibitive, and we would have had those insights in about 50 years, and probably wouldn't have been helpful. So that's like an example of it, but I do think that orientation of what is the benefit you're trying to drive in our business for a consumer, that helps you put a lens on how to think about the tool before thinking about, ooh, is cool, how do I use it?
And Carolyn, how about you? When you think about these realities today of how they can be using these tools, what comes to mind?
So the conversation that's been top of mind. So I personally have met with about 1,500, close to 1,600 C-suites and boards, because of the pressure that they were receiving on what's an AI stance. It's like, wait, you're a bank, you've been using AI forever, just so you know, you can relax now. But it's because of the generative AI thing, right? They were being forced to actually provide an answer. But it was nice because now they were interested in the different parts of their businesses that have been using AI and machine learning, but they never really appreciated also that editing.
You're right. The conversation has completely thumbled.
We call this, at Google, we have a joke. We actually call this our flower moment. Those of us who are working in kind of machine learning and data science, we were all mushrooms, quietly growing up in the beans, you know, just doing our thing, keeping the ecosystem thriving and moving. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're all beautiful flowers now. It's like this whole Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, you know, we're like dancing flowers. We're all singing and dancing, everybody cares, but we do. And so these C-suites and boards, the number one question they would give me is, oh my goodness, how do I even get started? What do I do? And I give them three very simple things to think about. How are you thinking about AI for growth? How are you thinking about AI for efficiencies? And then how are you thinking about AI for the future? Because they already have a business strategy. That business strategy was going to change. Same with countries, you know, like Saudi has their 2030 vision, Dubai has one of their own, like all these governments, businesses, they all have a strategy already. So how do you now re-look at that strategy and figure out which parts of AI, including generative AI, can actually help accelerate those goals? And with these C-suites, they always say to me, so why growth first? Why don't you say efficiencies first? Now, next year, I would have been in technology for 30 years. So I've seen what happened with the 2G, 3G movement, before we even had, when businesses were still connected with frame relay, before ISDN, before DSL. The mobile revolution, let's talk about that, mobile revolution. There wasn't a thing as mobile device management. We all had laptops, and that was as far as it went. Smartphones came out, and we all started to use it to access our exchange emails, which scared the living daylights out of CISOs all over the world. Like, you're accessing corporate email on your personal phone. God, why? And so that whole industry came out. That's what's happened with generative AI. It's the most powerful tool that's existed in tech, but it's still limited by human imagination, right? How we decide to use it. So with the C-suites, when they say why growth was and why not efficiencies, that's because as people, we use technology based on the limitations of the systems and tools, like what you said, Josh, about Photoshop, right? At first, people were afraid of it because they thought creators would use their job, but guess what? It was an enabler. Same thing here. And so when I say growth, because if you know the new thing and the new experience you're trying to design, and I love that. I was fist bumping when you were speaking about how, Nissan's thinking about it that way, Ilaria. And so if you're thinking as a leader about what you want the future to be for your people and your customers, you'll find the efficiencies after. But if you look at this technology only for cost savings or I'm going to get rid of X number of people in whatever function because now this thing is magically going to do all of that. One, it's unethical because there is a lot of IP in the people you hired that help you get your brand and your business what it is. And two, and by the way, if you just use this for efficiencies, you're trying to solve processes that you had to create because the technology wasn't there in the first place. So why fix something that may not need to be fixed? What if you could build something new? So new economic models are emerging. New processes are starting to be thought about because you now have the creative space to think about it. And so we do workshops like that with a lot of these C-suites, and it really changes, and the business problems they try to solve ends up being from a completely different lens.
I completely agree. And something that we talk about a lot is we shouldn't be using this technology to almost in a way to retrofit into the old ways of doing things. It's what are the new business models that you can invent for tomorrow, right? Because the limits of the old technology, let's wipe that away. And so to that point, let's move on to talk about those real world applications. Everybody's very interested. So we're talking a lot of, what it's going to do. Let's talk about what we can do today. And Josh, I'll start with you this time. And again, I'm biased because, I did come from Razorfish, so Josh, I'll start. But can you explain some examples of the work that we're doing over at Razorfish? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's probably only a couple examples where we really publicly talk about it, and that's because one dynamic with the C-suite right now is they all want us to be using Gen AI, and then they're like, "But please don't tell anyone." But when we think about the customer experience side of it, one of the things that we built earlier this year, late last year, was with Grey Goose. We built a generative AI toast maker. It would give you the perfect toast and the perfect cocktail recipe. And the idea behind it was actually coming back to a human experience. Around the holiday period, one of the most stressful things you can get asked to do is please make a toast. Whether it's with your family, your friends, or your colleagues, you're suddenly on the spot of, I need to say something clever. And I've probably had a few too many drinks. So we can arm you to be ready for that moment. And that's where we had this collective idea of how can we use Gen AI in a way that actually is meaningful to a customer experience. And we learned a lot through that because we knew if we were going to make it publicly accessible, people were going to try and mess with us, right? They were going to look for the hallucination opportunity. They were going to look for some way that they could, tweet something or post out there, look what I got the Grey Goose Toastmaker to do. So we learned around taking a tool that was actually quite powerful and backed by Gen AI. How do you put guardrails on an experience that leverages that so that people cannot easily find a way to have it generate something inappropriate or something wrong, right? And so that was a very big learning exercise for us. And from there, we've kind of gone on a journey with, we're working with an automotive manufacturer on how do we make one of the least used aspects of your car more accessible, and that is the menu. How many of you have looked in your glove box? There's a beautiful booklet in there that tells you everything about the car, everything you could ever need to know about it. I bet, While you have all used Google, none of you have opened that manual. If you could make that an interface that's conversational with what child seat fits in my car, and it could literally tell you based on the specs, this is the child seat, these are the child seats that you could purchase. If your battery's dead, what is the right way for me to jumpstart or charge my car? Then suddenly it's a useful thing. Even when your battery is dead in your car, most people don't look at the manual. It sits there, it could be 5 years old, and it will have no crease marks in its binding, right? But it is a very useful tool that customers don't access. And how do we make that more accessible? So Gen AI is another way of consuming a user manual, which is largely a bunch of unstructured data. There's some structured information in there, and suddenly putting it at the fingertips and making it easy when it's most needed, right? You know, when you do have a flat tire, you don't want to be flipping through a booklet. You want an answer, like, you know, what size nuts do I need to get off of the wheel? You need the specifics, and you need it now. And Gen AI is really a big enabler of that.
And then actually there is a business case there because we had a data point showing now the onboard experience when people buy a new vehicle, right? They will have multiple calls back to the retailer. How do I do, what button is this? How do I use this? So now you have your own, for lack of a better word, you have a brand ambassador that you can that you can give a voice to and a personality to that is now your personal helper, right? So Carolyn, how about you? What are you seeing that you find to be interesting or remarkable? Or...
So I want to talk about healthcare in this one. Since, obviously with Google, with our research and everything, you're all familiar with AlphaFold, what we've done with protein folding. We've noticed that by taking some of these advancements in large language models, we've been able to help with even radiographers for breast cancer detection. This was one of the examples. Identify shadows in images, in all of the imaging that the human eye could not see, to a point where we've actually increased breast cancer detection and early detection in ways that would not have been possible without this sort of advancements. And the other one is also for retinal disease detection. So there's lots of parts of the world we call the skinny fat syndrome, where you look fit, but you actually are probably going to be diabetic or pre-diabetic. A simple test by just even going to the ophthalmologist or the opticians can actually unveil certain parts of your eye and then might have an indication that this is a retinal scan. So it's taking those images and putting it through these types of models, and it's because of its capabilities and its strengths, it can actually see, and detect those things. And that's from a scientific perspective, right? How this technology can, when used and applied in these ways, can be extremely helpful. Back to the human centricity side, because that was to solve the thing as well, better detection, better disease prevention, right? That's still human centric. But I like what Josh, was highlighting, about the folding of the car. By the way, Ilaria, you and I just met today. I'm actually the AI exec sponsor for Nissan from the Google Climate Science, so we need to.
That's why we're all here today, to make
we're here to LNT. So I used to race cars. And I really, really enjoy it. But also because I'm an engineer and I'm technical, I like this stuff. But my other half is not, right? My other half is very much creative, is all that piece. And so whenever I'm not around, and he takes one of the cars out to keep the car running, I always get the text. It's like, this came on, what do I do? Because it's a different car from what he drives. It's the same symbol, but he goes into this panic mode because it's your car, and yours is like the V8 thing that's going to kill the humanity. Of course, there's no petrol that'll feed that car. And so I do that now I can tell them, like, just use Gemini in your Google search and it will tell you what the image is. But he completely forgets it's the same logo on every car, but he just panics. And so that human experience piece, for us at Google, we believe that all of these technologies can lead to what the future of an assistant is. Like I said, besides the brand ambassador thing is, how do you use these technologies to be an assistant to you? Because your persona, how you think, the culture you come from, how you ask questions is different. It's not just the linguistic aspect. The cultural aspect together with linguistics is what makes language. And so the right terminology, like how do you think of local nuances and questions?
With different contexts.
Correct. And so that is been really interesting working with our different clients from all over the world. Like Nissan, the languages that are important to Nissan consumers in an in-car system in the US is primarily American English and Spanish. Right? Most people would know that because Spanish is not taught at schools across the United States as a common curriculum, unlike Malaysia where English and Malay is taught in schools. So it gives you an idea into the things that we have to solve while we understand the local culture and context. And that will actually help our clients get very specific to the things that they need and to deliver business value from that.
Wonderful. Ilaria, how about you from a customer experience perspective? Helen, what are you saying?
Well, we talked already about examples related to the automotive, and absolutely, I endorse what you say about like making life of our customers a little bit easier. So when they have a problem with the car, instead of looking at the manuals, just take a picture and understand what's going on. We also focus on the after content. So when customers start exploring Nissan vehicles, because despite of the fact that the website is built in a very nice way, it can be confusing because you can search for a Qashqai and you can find 10 different types of Qashqai. And then you say like, okay, now what is my Qashqai? So we use GenAI to actually help our customers navigate the differences between all the grades. Because they were on the website nice tables comparing all the specs. But what was missing is that like conversational components that you usually have in the human interaction, whether it's someone, an assistant, or in the dealership that actually explain to you the main differences. And so we use GenAI to kind of replicate that interaction through a virtual assistant, helping our customers picking the right car for them or the right version of the car that they want. Another example is how we use GenAI to improve our search function on the website. So when you go on the website, they usually search for something. What we do is redirect you to pages, which it can be helpful, but it's not really satisfactory. So what we've done, we use GenAI to actually summarize and give you some references on what you're searching, so the results are more relevant to you. I can also give you the answer immediately. And we saw an increase of the interaction with the website search results, which leads to increase of the business value for Nissan. And then I would say the last example is for our internal employees. So we are a customer experience function. So we have a huge repository of customer research, insights, user testing, and you can have tons of documents on that repository. So what we've done, we use GenAI to summarize documents and highlight key insights of the topic research. So for example, I want to understand how to improve the connected car services, and I'm looking for research about that. I can just ask the GenAI search, and I would have a nice summary of all the reports that are in that repository, highlighting the key things that I should know. And that is actually, we just boost and improve an existing process and makes the life of our implements do a little a bit easier. And that for us.
And to build on that, and maybe Josh, you're about to say something.
Well,
I do think.
Ilaria makes a really important point, and that is, one, it's about the opportunity to unlock potential of employees. But with this other idea, everyone has access to Gen AI, which is part of the reason it can't be your strategy. It lacks differentiation for your business. To make Gen AI strategically valuable, you need something proprietary to throw into the mix, and that's your data. Whether that's your customer data, whether it's your product data, you have to have something proprietary to enable and unlock that potential of Gen AI. Otherwise, everyone has a hammer. Great. But if you want that to be a specific tool that is useful for you, you need a strategic difference. The difference that most brands and companies have today is they sit on vast volumes of data that they have no idea what to do with. Good news, we have something to do with it now. we can use GenAI to extract more insights out of it and unlock human potential within your existing employee base and shifting from that. Forget about the efficiency for a moment. What can you unlock? What is the thing that your employee base can drive even more value on that you've not thought about yet?
And just thinking about taking first-party research, for example, and being able to feel life. And then something that we've been testing is giving life to that first-party audience data and being able to create virtual segments, virtual personas that you can actually now interact with and talk to the data again around these, basically these virtual audiences. So we've been doing a lot of experimentation around that, and we're actually even testing to see, doing tests to see how close can we get from talking to a human focus group and then a virtual focus group, and are we in some area of confidence when we're talking to the AI version of it? And I feel like that is giving a whole new life to data that normally is 2D, it sits there. You now can bring it to life, right? And so, but then all of this leads now, let us conclude with the downer portion, which are the risks, right? And really, there's a lot of challenges that remain in the space. There's a lot of skepticism from certain clients. There's a lot of governance and ethical concerns that we need to really work our way through, really as a culture, right? As a global humanity perspective. And Caroline, I know you work quite a bit with government and policymakers, AI ethics and governance. And do you believe that there is going to be continued hesitance? It's going to be an obstacle in adoption, or what do you see? Are you hopeful?
I'm actually really positive about this in the sense of when we focus on the human element and the benefits to it is actually when we can change hearts and minds. And so the healthcare example I gave you earlier is one of them. And the other one of the stats we actually published earlier this year was how, as all of you can imagine, Google is a software company. Just because not everybody installs the software on laptops in the traditional sense doesn't mean that we don't have a whole bunch of developers, right? We started to even see with using something like Gemini's Code Assist, and I think Ivor also mentioned that earlier, that coding is actually a really good assistant internally. Now imagine we are a 10x engineering company, 55% less time to understand new code. That's massive for a company like us, with so many software developers across so many different product areas. 50% less unit tests are having to be written. Now, this is where the risk thing comes in. I've actually had lots of people ask me, well, wait a minute, software engineering best practices, you would need to write unit tests. What do you mean by you're writing 50% less unit tests? Because most unit tests across all of the different life cycles of software, testing is fixed, right? And so you don't need someone to write it. What you do need to know is someone needs to understand why that unit test is written in the first place and what it is that you're actually testing for and what the results should be. So you're moving someone's level of understanding higher up in the value chain. If you're a software engineer, you need to understand what the issues are with it, how to fix it, not just how to write the test, but what the test is actually making. So those things are where it's very hopeful, right? You get, skilled people, scientists, etc., to focus on what being able to do that and derive the value that way from this type of technology. Where the a lot more government and public policymakers are right now is they're starting to go, oh wait, if we over-regulate this too early, same as if we said we're not going to invent the motor car because then people will drive and ride horse-drawn carriages would not move here. What would happen if we actually took it back and say, what if we didn't have a car? What if we didn't have engines? What if we didn't have buses? How would that work? And so we're at that point where if we over-regulate the inventions and the testing of what AI could potentially be, we lose an opportunity to actually look at what it can do. And so that's why for us on the research side of our house, we have a tech and society side as well, like Google is a bit, we're highlighting a lot of what AI as a benefit can be across things like smallholder farmers and agriculture in India, all the way through to wildfire prevention, with projects Bellwether, and then like Project Sunroof, which countries where there's less sun, how do we help them bring more energy back into the grid? So by working in Chile, these is really been very positive. But a lot of governments are starting to realize, okay, it's not the social media thing that we all fell into, that everybody's like, oh my God, they put all their data out there, and now GenAI is just going to be everything as a subreddit. They're starting to realize it's not all doing here, all of the other things that AI can really be useful and helpful, and GenAI is a way to expose some of those developments as well, and to be able to foster more collaboration instead of this rule of iron fist, we need to just shut everything down.
So then for Josh, because I think you brought up something, it's the content piece of it. So it's that external communications piece. And so Josh, from your perspective, knowing that content authenticity is such an important thing a lot of clients are talking about. It also is where a lot of hesitation with clients, where that comes in, and wondering if you have perspectives on that, knowing that we are a social fueled culture.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of concern around the authenticity of content. And Nigel's slides, I saw a couple of deep fakes up there, some of them not so deep. But the reality is a huge risk, right? And we have been investing heavily in standards like the C2PA because content authenticity and ownership and provenance is so important. That we also need to get to a place where we align around disclosure, right? Like there is no aligned definition of the responsible use of AI, right? We all agree we should be responsible, which is great. At least that's the right intent, but we don't have aligned definition around it. So absent that aligned definition, which I think will come at some point, we need to at least align on disclosure. We should be telling people when we're using Gen AI, right? It doesn't need to be a secret. From healthcare to generating toasts to auto manuals, we can tell people we're using Gen AI and probably not take too many hits for it. And so that's where disclosure and then leaning into standards like the C2PA help us give consumers and just people generally confidence in where does piece of content come from. And it could be coming from Gen AI. It may come from a human that went into something from Gen AI to a human again and then back into Gen AI. But having that chain being transparent is critical to building trust and confidence that using these tools is being done for good and not for secrecy or nefarious things.
And I think to build on what you're saying, it is also going to be a work in progress.
Yes.
So as an example, real quick, because it's one of my favorite anecdotes, when Facebook rolled out their tagging, that basically this has been made with AI, there were situations where photographers were correcting a lens flare with Adobe Firefly, which is what photographers have been doing for ages, that now all of a sudden their photo, their content was being flagged as being made with generative AI, which obviously erodes their brand, erodes their product. And I know clients were like, oh my, right? And so I think things like that, it was the right thing for them to do. I think we're trying to iron out the use cases though, and the bugs that might be within some of these.
Takes time to work through standards, right? And I think, again, going back to the speed of this technology, we're going to have mistakes along the way. We're going to try to get after a standard. We're going to make mistakes by tagging a real photographer's photo is generated by AI because they corrected it versus my photo, which was entirely AI because I have no talent. So mistakes are going to happen out there. We've got to be embracing of that given the speed of it, right? But I think that coming back to disclosure is like a baseline for it, I think is a common principle.
And how about on your end, Ilaria?
I fully agree with that. In fact, in all the pilots that we have live to our customer base, we use disclaimers. We transparently say that this is Gen AI generated content, and not only because we are liable in a way from a legal perspective if we communicate wrong or even false information, but also because we are winning the trust and that relationship that we're trying to build with our customers. So we are trying to make them more familiar with this technology. And if we fail from the very beginning communicating something that's wrong, it's a big risk for us. We can very well hear and implementation with our customer. So for sure, setting the right data rates and also being fully transparent of the usage of GenAI is one of the key things that we are considering right now. And also being transparent and be accountable for what we say and what we do and how we use GenAI.
It also allows you to have attribution and explainability, right? Because you can't do, especially with these models, the reason why they also hallucinate is because they know everything about everything, but nothing about you, right? And so if you're grounding and embedding things in your data, like I said, it's already good, then it allows you to have attribution. Yeah. So when someone asks you how did your chatbot give you that answer, you can actually say, yeah, because it referenced these documents or these data sets. That's when you can also then go in and realize, oh, actually, there's something wrong with the data set, and I can actually fix it.
Okay, so now I know that we're a little tight on time, so we're going to do a speed round questions. And so there's a gentleman that's been raising his hand right over there. So he's first.
Great. Hi, good morning. A lot of what you said today is music to my ears. But since we're talking about real-world applications, here's where my nightmares are. I work for a medical technology company, 160 years old, 100 companies, 100 countries. Legacy and complexity is high. But when you talk about growth and efficiency, and Caroline, you brought this up, the pressures are enormous. We are investing, so as a lead for AI, I'm investing millions of dollars. And being asked very clearly, what does the efficiency model look like? Now, in that context, how do you drive the leadership mindset into growth, yet keeping a very close focus on efficiency? So that's the first question. The second one, Josh, you mentioned about business outcomes. With these millions of dollars being invested, what's that horizon? 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, 24 months? Or are we talking about 5-year plan? Because somewhere the business, as a business leader, I need to answer that question to the business. So thank you.
The switch was actually by getting them to realize growth is what every business has to do, right? You have to. And they were looking at efficiencies as the way to show growth from an accounting perspective. Right. But when we actually focused on where is the brand supposed to be, where's your business supposed to be, whether it's solving, getting more analysis or diagnoses, whatever the metric is that you were ready to measure for growth, by doing it that way and then saying this is how you'll find the efficiencies, flips the switch, right? It gets them to go from just wanting to think about customer service, call centers, all of the typical stuff that people want to look at for efficiencies. Then the other thing about the metrics, even for the growth, better diagnoses, faster time to prevention, faster time to, pick that one of those metrics, getting more people to actually buy the particular brand or medication, right? Those things actually help. And then I think it ties into what Joshua will give you as an answer.
Yeah, I mean, from an outcomes point of view, I think it's great you're investing millions of dollars in Gen AI. I think we work with clients to really get into pilots first. So, and it doesn't mean they're spending millions on millions 6 months. We're generally measuring that the hundreds of thousands of dollars so that we can do a small pilot, show an outcome. Then we do another pilot, get another outcome. Then we get a bit bigger and a bit bigger, right? And so we've really focused on a less exciting, but more provable journey of adoption when it comes to Gen AI, because we do see the outcomes. Where it's hard to get after outcomes is when you say, let's make $100 million bet. That's for Google to do, right? For our clients, it's about let's start leaning in, adopting and building in organizational readiness, data strategy, and then start showing some return on that. And that means incremental investment. And I view it as our obligation as both agency and platform and technology to be making the large investments so that we can take our clients on that journey with us through pilots and learning before we build up to what ultimately will be a substantial investment, but on the back of proven outcome.
But like any kind of transformation, though, you're going to need to have the short-term wins to build the momentum and then have your midterm goals, because there will be returns in the short term, in the midterm, and then in the long term. And you need to have that journey map tied to the business strategy your business strategy is a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan. So if you can tie all of these pilots and things that you're doing towards that goal, that's when you can continue to have the investments and that flywheel effect. You'll be able to say that these are the things that I would like my team to have, and these are the skills I would like my team to have. And so that's where the how you decide and specify as a leader what you're looking for is going to be really important. Like on our teams, even though we are a tech company, we don't require people to have degrees, for example, now to work at Google, as long as, you can show and test and prove your body of work. And so how do we determine what that body of work is? And so for some teams, it's exactly that. Can you go up and just whiteboard exactly what happens in the code versus, having to just always rely on the tool? Because it's the testing of the critical thinking and the understanding that I think is really important. I also believe that AI tools today, especially generative AI tools, will change how we do certain tasks in jobs, but it will also lead to not just new job creation, but a change in what the jobs actually are. Because a lot of the things that we've done were task-based that made up what we thought were skills, but they weren't really, right? They were just things that were expected to be done. So how would we rethink what current jobs are, what new jobs should be, and then how AI plays a role in that? So I think we have one.
Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have to cut the questions short, but wonderful. Thank you, panelists, for being here. And I was so excited to be here as well.